Hey everybody, I'm a huge fan of Project Censored. It's a great website. It's a great news organization. I suggest that you support it in any way you can. I'm going to read some stories from them. This is their 2016. These are their top 25 censored stories. They do this every year. It's a tremendous thing. I'll leave the link below. The first one I wanted to start with, and there's no particular order, but this is their 22nd. Department of Education cooperates with ALEC to privatize education. This is from October 4th, 2016. The Department of Education and school districts throughout the U.S. are working with billionaire families such as the Waltons and Netflix CEO Reed Hastings, as well as the DeVos family, who Donald Trump just nominated Betsy DeVos as his education secretary. And she's a huge charter school fan. But let me continue with this article, because this article is fantastic. Dustin Belke reported for PR Watch in January 2016, instead of defending public education in pursuit of equality for all students, the Department of Education is working with organizations like the American Legislative Council, ALEC, an alliance of corporate lobbyists and state legislators, as well as local chamber of commerce to encourage the conversion of public institutions into private charter schools. A December 2015 Department of Education presentation showed that the federal government had spent over $3 billion of taxpayer money to boost charter schools, supporting an uncritical assessment of how effective charter schools actually are. Belke described the 25-slide overview of the Department of Education's charter school program as an uncritical PR document embracing a magical idea of charter schools. According to the Center for Media and Democracy, although many charter schools have failed and closed in the last 20 years, the Department of Education continues to provide significant funding to promote them. An October 2015 Center for Media and Democracy investigation, Charter School Black Hole, uncovered how much the federal government has invested in the charter schools, as well as the Department of Education's ties to ALEC. As Belke reported, a slide from the December 2015 Department of Education overview of its charter school program acknowledged that it had spent $3.3 billion to fund the startup, replication, and expansion of public charter schools. However, Belke reported for the Center of Media and Democracy was unable to extract this number from the Department of Education despite inquiries and Freedom of Information Acts. Since 2014. The actual figure may be higher because the list of charter schools receiving Department of Education funding appears to have been incomplete. Overall, the Department of Education overview suggests that it functions as a propagandist for charter schools, Belke wrote. The Department of Education. And now Betsy DeVos. According to the Center for Media Democracy report, laws governing charters have been built by proponents, favoring flexibility over rules, permitting an epidemic of fraud, waste, and mismanagement that would not be tolerated in public schools. As Belke concluded, the Department of Education's charter school agenda matches that of the anti-education, pro-privatization movement that funds and promotes so much of the misinformation about public schools. Corporate media have provided significant coverage of ALEC's involvement in promoting charter schools, including its lobbying efforts. But the role of the Department of Education has not been well covered in corporate press. A 2012 New York Times article, Public Money Finds Backdoor to Private Schools, mentioned both ALEC and the Department of Education, but did not establish any connection between them. Now, that's a pretty big deal. This is, like I said, I'll leave a link below. You can make your own assessment. Charter schools are bad for our country for multiple reasons. Privatizing our education system even further, having more corporate influence, removing critical thought and turning people even more so than it's already being done. You can kind of see why, I think, with this article that they've spent $3 billion, and this is just since 2014. They've spent all this money promoting charter schools. You can kind of see why the curriculum in public schools has turned the way it has. If I'm in the Department of Education and I'm being lobbied by, let's say, the DeVos family or one of the Walton family that owns Walmart or the guy that owns Netflix, his family, or any of these other people's families that want these billionaires and private organizations, like the Rockefeller Foundation and these other foundations who influence and want public schools to be now charter schools. If I'm part of that And I'm looking at that and I'm seeing, and I have that agenda, then I want to destroy the public schools. I want to make them unsafe. I want to make them places where people don't critically think, where people don't want to send their kids, where people are propagandized to, where every form of oppression seems to follow. We spend the education budget that keeps getting reduced. We spend less now per student than we did 5 years ago. Excuse me. We all know the statistics about how we spend more on prisoners than we do on our students. This is it's an epidemic that's hit this country, and you now can see how ALEC, which is basically the corporate right wing department, the commerce departments in every city, the Chamber of Commerce in every city, which is just for big business and corporations, and it only has the business agenda. That's all they care about, which means lower taxes and more public services for them and nothing for you, or whatever you can get good for you. But they want the government to help them out in multiple ways through, like I said, tax cuts, through building roads, bridges, infrastructure, and they lobby for that. Meanwhile, they lobby for less taxes. So inevitably, you're going to be paying those taxes. You're going to be building those bridges, the infrastructure, the roads, etc. For Walmart, for wherever. You're the one that's going to absorb the police have to spend more on police officers. You're the one that's going to have to spend more on street lights being built and all this stuff being built. So they use the commons way to make their billions. They use the commons way more than we do, and they don't pay their fair share. And what they want now is to take all of the money that's coming into the education system, and they want it for themselves, and they want it for their private schools. Can you imagine the Walmart, Walmart Elementary, Sam Walton High School, where you learn how to run a cash register and how to, you learn how to work in retail, and you learn how to take orders from unearned authority, and how to take less money per hour every year, and how bad unions are, and how organization of labor is a bad thing, and that you're the benevolence of the rich man, and giving you a job, and the rich families, and training you. And you can look into India, by the way, and Common Core. This is the people that have complained about Common Core. And that's gone all over the country. The federal government, the federalization of our school systems, in a lot of ways through testing and et cetera. This is an agenda to get them all privatized. The whole agenda of corporations, of business, is to get as much money as they can from the government through any sort of whatever it has to do to get there. They will do. And I think they've infiltrated, and I don't think, this article proves it, that they have infiltrated the Department of Education, and they're taking tax dollars to promote private education. And nobody's talking about it. That's why it's on Project Censored, because this is something that take that $3 billion and put it into the school system. They have no problem spending money for their own agendas secretly, but when it's public and you need more money for teachers, and you need more money for unions, and you need more money for just infrastructure, or just to update our schools, to bring computers in, to bring in more teachers, nope, can't have that, because we have to show that public education doesn't work. We have to show. And by the way, I'm a John Taylor Gatto fan. I believe that professional teaching, pedagogy, is wrong. It's not good for our society. It's been induced into something. You've turned people, they're just good employees. They're just willing to take orders. So they're not teaching because they love to teach, or most teachers are just teaching because they want 3 months off a year, and they want to make $40,000 a year, and it's a position of status in our society a little bit to be a teacher. I know we see on TV that teachers are so downtrodden, but teachers make more than most people do. Their union is stronger than most working class people for what their degree gives them. I mean, it's so the idea that the teacher is oppressed, the teacher is looked up to in our society. It's unearned authority. And instead of changing the way we do our schooling system, still keeping it public, in my opinion, but making them places of critical thought and learning, we've homogenized them and made them about corporations. And now corporations literally want to take them over. they keep honing them down. They keep changing the curriculum. They keep changing what's in the books, the history books and the textbooks. They give you things like this new mathematical concepts that nobody can figure out, that make no sense to anybody that's over. I mean, you'd have to literally be immersed in it to understand it. And what that further does is, what does that further do? And that separates the young from the old, doesn't it? How does mom and dad help you with your math when they don't understand it? So you go to the internet, or so you go to another source. It just continues to divide the generations. 2 plus 2 is fucking 4. Let's leave it at that. And then let's move. This has been working for thousands of years, and all of a sudden there's a new mathematical way of doing things, or there's a new way of approaching how we learn and understand things. All schools are now is memory. All they are is remembering numbers and dates and people's names, and then being able to write those dates and whatever and people's names at the end of the week or the end of the month or the end of the semester, whatever your tests are. Your ability to retain that information for a long period of time and then regurgitate that information on a piece of paper is what's going to make you successful or not successful in our society, because then that will give you good grades, and your good grades will lead to a degree and all, blah blah blah, and scholarships. So our schools aren't teaching our kids to critically think anyway, our public schools. And now with corporations taking them over and seeing that corporations, of course, are corrupt and they waste money like it's the overhead. It's one of the reasons that healthcare is so expensive. It's because it's private. It's because it's for profit. So you have all these layers of bureaucrats that get paid, and it's just one more thing. It's just one more. It's one reason that healthcare is not affordable. When you reduce it, when you take the burden, when you stop trying to privatize it and you make it not for profit, you eliminate so many fucking middlemen and so many people that don't have any reason to be part of the healthcare system at all. And that's why single payer is so good, in my opinion. But so check this article out. It's about how your government, your tax dollars are paying to promote, prop up, and pay for charter schools, and not in the way that you're, not vouchers, not starting, not in a way that's legal, but actually in a political way to be a PR movement for the charter schools. The Department of Education, shocking, but it just shows one more corrupt. The CDC's bought off, the EPA's bought off. What the CDC and what they've done about vaccines and spreading that disinformation about, they have a CDC insider saying the MMR vaccine gives, if you do it under the age of 1, and especially in black kids, especially in black boys, you have a higher risk of getting autism, but didn't want to, and had to whistleblow and still can't go public. The movie Vaxxed goes into this. That's a person who works at the CDC still. So we're told we're the EPA doesn't, they're not doing their job. They're not really for us. They're more for corporations and things like what the Frank Luntz, the Clean Air Initiative or the Blue Skies Initiative and the Clean Water Act and all these things, which are the exact opposite. They've all been bought off by corporations. We all know how corrupt it is. And now we see the Department of Education that has been totally infiltrated. And now Donald Trump is just keeping that going along. Let's get Betsy DeVos in there, and she can go look at Betsy DeVos's record in Michigan and Detroit particularly. It's tragic. What that woman has done and her family has done and the Walton family has done, absolutely tragic to education and to the average person. And you're paying for it. Thank you for listening.